Oh yes, what is happening, people? Happy Saturday, happy weekend. I hope you're having a great weekend. And this is the 4 hour time frame chart on gold. But more than that, I want to present to you and show you the tip of the iceberg to what LIQU tools is going to be. And here, what you have is basically a very complete algorithm that thinks for us as traders to make a decision based on a lot of variables that it is our job to take into consideration, analyze, interpret, and execute. So as you can see here, we have the time window, the trade window. Do I want to trade in the next 5 minutes or up to weeks? So I'm going to start just in the 1 hour time frame, and I want the tool to analyze the past 24 hours. And I want to aim for an intraday trade. I could do scalping, intraday, or swing, but I'm going to go for intraday. So I'm going to run this analysis. It takes less than 3 seconds, and it'll give you a very complete market sentiment based on many variables, as I said. But most importantly, and one of my favorite ones, is my personal A shapes and V shapes. Something that most of you know me for and trade, and it is my winning system. So this tells you there is an A shape confirmed in the past 12 hours. It gives you a whole set of variables and tells you to wait. At this point, there is a 50-50 almost, basically, chance of price to going back up or continuing lower. It tells you an invalidation level. I know some of you may not be able to read this, but when you actually obtain the tool, you can, obviously, right? It's there. It tells you a candle close above 415 on elevated volume would invalidate the bearish lean and suggest bullish continuation. Okay? This also tells you a key level, which is the recent swing high of and an inverse fair value gap there is at resistance 4153. Okay, well that's within the lower time frames. And if I see volume and order flow, for example, notice how there's also a 50-50 short and long positioning here, right? So there's a lot of things that you can see to understand why there is a signal like this, okay? You have institutional bearishness starting to exit the market. You have technicals that are aiming bearish, just one bullish in terms of price action and structure. And because there's a mix of those variables, the signal is to wait. Okay, that is the tip of the iceberg. There's much more to analyze that we don't see. These are just some of the factors like the dollar index. It takes into account the commitment of traders and a basic price action little algorithm there. Okay, now does this make sense? That's where we're always asking ourselves, does it make sense? Some of you saw the live session we did last week where we were dumping all the time, and from this point, from when this drop started happening, the signal was bearish, and we made a couple $1,000 just by following that overall bias of the tool. And we took short trades from up here all the way down to over here, and the next day, which was over here, all the way down to here. So this drop, our tool was accurate on, okay? And that is fascinating to see this and study the market and see that it played out is absolutely amazing, because you can basically double check, okay? This is, by the way, the Fibonacci levels, which is also great. It gives you a high and low, and it tells you where those levels are. But for example, this signal that says wait, does it make sense, right? Let's ask ourselves, does it make sense that we should be waiting here? And I mean, clearly, yes, because this is an area consolidation that now the market could basically either break to the upside and return back up over here, okay, even all the way back up to this resistance zone, or it could be a continuation drop as soon as the market opens next week, maybe it'll stay here for a few hours, right? And then completely break out of this trend line and take a dive. So the signal makes sense. That's what I also want to start showing you all, that this is not, it makes sense, okay? Obviously, technically speaking, price just respected this imbalance over here. So that's interesting. It tapped into this imbalanced area and it's showing rejection. So I think personally, when it comes to like my own analysis and my experience and criteria, I think price does need to rally a little bit and maybe recover part of this drop. And there's something very interesting over here. Look at this, right, that imbalance over here. This would be a bearish fair value gap, okay? So this is where a potential extremely high resistance level could be within this time frame, where maybe the next week starts bullish, just like this one over here did, right? It started bullish. This was Sunday 14, the opening, and it just went up here to these resistance, and then it dumped from Wednesday into Friday. And so there is a possibility that price does that, and it opens up over here with a little gap, right? If technicals hold, because the fundamentals with the situation with Iran and the US, with Trump now saying that the peace deal, ironically, right? Because I don't believe anything he says at this point. It's all done on purpose to manipulate the market. But if it's true that there is no peace deal anywhere in the horizons soon, this might even open with a gap down, because Israel already, or it continues to attack Lebanon, and that's part of what Iran wants not to happen. And so anyway, I don't want to get into that topic, but whatever driver ends up being the catalyst for price to continue dumping, it could open with a gap and then just straight up to the trend line and dump, right? So we don't know what's going to happen. Therefore, this is very accurate. And the tool, as I was saying, it was giving a sell all this time. And the 4-hour target, I'm actually going to pull the screenshot, because I shared it with you all over here in our LIQU chats. This was the signal. Today our LIQU tool was telling us to sell. Right we there. Made a couple $1,000 just by following the signal. So I'm gonna go back right there. Look at that. It was saying sell when price was at 4222, and the 4-hour target was putting it at 4195. Okay, so we were right here, 4222. Okay, the signal had been bearish from up here, but knowing it was bearish here, it gave a 4195, which is all the way up here, and it continued coming down. This is the 4-hour time frame. So 4 hours in the next 4 hours, right? So during this 4-hour candle, the following 4-hour target was 4195, and it's right there. So that is a very accurate piece of signal right there. You see that? 4-hour target 4195, 1-hour target 4210, invalidation 4229. Today okay. So that was 4229 up here, right there. That was basically the opening of that 4-hour candle. So we have come up with something very powerful, and the way you use this is simply adapting it to your trading style. If we go, obviously now the market is closed and it's going to continue to throw a wait signal despite what I change here. But when we make another live, and when we start and you start actually using this, you can go to the 5-minute, analyze the past 6 hours in a scalp trade. Give me a scalping opportunity. It'll tell you a 1-hour target, potentially a 4-hour target that you could just ride in a scalping matter, right? So yeah, that's the tip of the iceberg to what our LIQU tool is so far. There's going to be more to come. I don't want to spoil things, or I don't want to, um, talk about the things we're preparing because they're not finished. We still have to prove they work, and it's part of our process. We're gonna enjoy every little bit of it, and as we also hear you, how your experience is, what you think, we can integrate certain things to it. That's the purpose of this project as well. So just to finish my personal analysis, let's see what happens when the week starts and the signal it throws. But I think if we go to the daily time frame, this is already balanced here. So even though there is a fair value gap in the 4-hour time frame, the daily chart is already balanced all here. And notice where this candle is leaving potentially that same potential in fair value gap. So I think what's actually going to happen, because of the situation with Iran and because Trump already came out saying Iran is finished, these guys, whatever his random tweets, I think what's going to happen is that you have the daily candle that's going to open down here, and it's going to be a bearish candle, but it's going to come up to retest the previous closing or the trend line and leave this imbalance somewhere, right? So this is what I think is going to happen. Again, this candle is probably going to open down here. It'll come up here, briefly mess around at maybe 4170, more or less, maybe 4185 or something, and barely leave a little gap, and then dump. I mean, at least to 4,000. Okay, that could be the day because of what might happen this weekend. Okay, and so you'll have a wick here. That wick somewhere there. Let me see if I can do this. There you go. Okay, so that's more or less what I think the next day could look like. However, of course, if the market doesn't price that situation where Trump is probably saying like, oh, we're not gonna, or maybe if for some reason the market just doesn't do that, right? What's the other alternative? Again, that we see that spike up here to retest this 4-hour imbalance and then take a dive into the week, like toward the middle of the week, just like last week did. So you'll have almost like a little, you could almost say it's a potential triangle right here. You see this? And so you'll have price maybe messing around because, again, that's what Trump likes to do. He likes to play with the market. So maybe they're like, oh, Iran, now they're listening. Now we're going to have a peace deal. And then the market comes back up. And then when it's up here again, he'll say like, oh, Netanyahu, what are you doing? I told you not to bomb Lebanon again. And then this comes down here. Something like this. Right? That's also the possibility. I don't know. And because of the fact that the market is reacting to these politicians PMSing is truly sad, but it is part of the game that we are playing at. So we need to be ready. And this is how you're going to be more prepared than ever because this has been very accurate, okay? So right now, just wait, celebrate, and stay tuned for our next videos and more to come.